Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live right here, Friday, December 2nd. It's the first Friday of December. 3 returning champions. Great people back. Leighann Lord is back, award-winning stand-up comedian. You've seen her on Showtime special. Very, very, very funny women of a certain age. Really funny. And she hosts the podcast, People with Parents. Leighann, great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you too, Dean. Always a pleasure.
And you are ageless. It's true. I'm not kidding.
Thank you.
Also back is my buddy Scott Blakeman, at one of the top political comics working today. We've done Stand Up for Peace together, where we try to bring peace through comedy. We failed. He co-hosts a twice weekly podcast with Tom Sanders, Getting Through This with Tom and Scott. Welcome back, Scott.
Well, it's so great to be with you, especially on a first Friday. It's,
Is that special? Is that a special day?
Well, it's just like anything that says, first Friday. My dad was always off on Fridays growing up as a dentist, so I've always liked Fridays.
Interesting. And
Yes.
Also back, our friend Kevin Dombrowski, a national touring comedian, host of Just Joking, and Against the Will of the People. He's recording a new album this Sunday, despite demands from the audience not to. He doesn't care. And he's doing it here at New York Comedy Club, December 4th, Sunday, 2 shows. Kevin, welcome back. And where is it? There's 2 New York Comedy Clubs. So in case people are coming to New York this weekend and they're in town, where is it? Which one?
Yes. Hello, Dean. Thank you for welcoming me back. I'm actually recording this album, so I could also have Fridays off from now on too.
Okay.
It'll be a nice change of pace. I'm recording my follow-up album. It's at New York Comedy Club on 24th Street in Gramercy at 2nd Avenue. There's a 7 and 9:30. It's going to be a great show. I've been running the hour for, the past, it feels like 5 months. So I'm so ready to do this album. It's going to be a great show. If you can't make this one, I'm in Atlantic City Comedy Club tomorrow, headlining Saturday. So you got 2 options to see the material before I either end myself or the hour. We'll see which one comes first.
And is the album titled Somewhat Funny Men of a Certain Age, or what's the title?
Actually, believe it or not, it's called Stay at Home Kevin.
Stay Home Kevin. That's good.
It is actually. Leighann was very. I think the last time we were on together, it was very close to. We were like workshopping album titles, and we did something about Stand Up Dad. It ended up being
I like that.
It ended up being Stay at Home Kevin, simply because it follows my first album called High on Molly, which is about my wife.
And the Stay at Home Kevin, is the album cover going to be? Is the album cover going to be a Home Alone type of thing?
I'm not sure.
On your face like this, and it's Kevin Dombrowski.
That's not a bad idea. Actually.
Culkin?
My wife is the creative director of everything that goes on with this. That's like her normal job. Anyway, so she's got all creative control to make me look better than I sound when you hear me.
All right, so
and that's what I call a power couple. You know, complimentary and supportive and uplift. That is fantastic. Those relationship goals, everybody. I don't know if that's what y'all tuned in for, but that's what I'm getting out of it.
Shouldn't you be in a relationship though, where people are supportive of each other and helping each other? And
I think that key word "should" is what the world spins out of control on, sir. It's what it should be, but that's not what a lot of people get.
It's true. And I guess if you're in a relationship like that, that's good. You should appreciate it, right? We just passed Thanksgiving, and there's certain things you give thanks for personally. So let's talk about something that we don't give thanks for. 2 words, Kanye West. And I don't even know, like, it is just spun out of control. So Scott, I want to start with you because, you're Jewish. And while some of this is so over the top, it's almost comedic to certain people. It is dangerous. Now, it was dangerous before, but now, I mean, you have Alex Jones, the white supremacist Nick Fuentes, and Kanye West on the same panel, which is clearly a sign of the apocalypse, right up there with cats and dogs living together and locusts. But Scott, seriously, someone being Jewish, when you hear this and he's doing his best to mainstream anti-Semitism, I'm convinced now he is trying to mainstream it. I don't know why, but he is. What's your reaction?
Well, this is the first time in my lifetime that I've seen it quite like this. But my reaction, I think, should be the way my reaction would be towards Leighann and racism and Kevin and Dean. I mean, you all from your backgrounds. This is America. It's always been America. I was watching the documentary Ken Burns, U.S. and the Holocaust, and back in that time, so many hundreds of thousands of Jewish lives could have been saved, but the U.S. government did not want to have Jews emigrate to America. In a weird way, things were worse. We had Charles Lindbergh, who was a hero to some, and then a virulent anti-Semite. Father Coughlin, who had a radio show that had many more listeners than Alex Jones and idiots like him. So it's nothing new, but it's scary. I think what's more dangerous than Kanye, who's clearly mentally ill and destructive and despicable, the words he says, and Alex Jones, who owes $1 billion to the Sandy Hook families for lying about that. And of course, just like with your Nazi lawsuit, no one's ever going to see that money. What really concerns me more is the mainstream politicians. And you've written about this, Dean, that Donald Trump, who's really the one who's normalizing mainstream all forms of extremism, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, all of it. And as you pointed out, very few Republicans who've spoken out, including Ron DeSantis, who's going to run for president in 2024. That's what's really dangerous when elected officials, the worst officials in the past would jump on that. That would be a line. And now it's not enough of a line for them.
True. I mean, elected officials can't choose who's going to like them. You can choose who you're going to invite to dinner. I don't mean Trump, but you can't choose who might like you or say things, but you can choose the way you react and you respond. And that says so much in this time of Trump, where Ron DeSantis did not at all comment on the dinner of Nick Fuentes with Kanye before this. So Leighann, just what's your reaction to this latest meltdown and how we got here in a way, especially in the last, few weeks? And there was a lot of silence and some people try to defend it. And here's where we are.
Well, first of all, I don't know what Twilight Zone episode we're in, but when Alex Jones is the one trying to pull you back from anti-Semitism, it's like, what am I seeing? This turns uncomfortable? Where are we?
Alex Jones, yeah, but he pushed back a little, but he did say there is a Jewish mafia and Jewish people control Hollywood. So he's going more with the old time tropes. And he's like, hey, Kanye, let's keep our anti-Semitism within acceptable boundaries here. Like, it's all horrible.
Let's stay with the hits and the classics,
right?
Shall we? Yeah, no, I didn't know. I've sort of been on I don't want to say a news diet, but it's like, I had to put a new roof on my house. That stuff like that is pretty real world sobering.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, no roof, no house. So I had to do it. And so I haven't been like really into everything. And then last night someone goes, hey, did you hear what Kanye did? I'm like, what did he do? What now? And then the hood over his face. And it's like, yes, I agree with Scott. This is absolutely dangerous. I agree with you, Dean. It's not funny. It's right in the middle. It's like, who is this? What Kim was dealing with? I've never thought I would have sympathy for a Kardashian. Like, sis, behind the scenes, if this is what he's wilding out doing now, what were you pulling him back from? I don't know. As a former wife, that perhaps that's out of pocket to say, but this is sadness.
But that's a great question. That's the same question I had about with Kim. Was she living this life with Kanye going, you can't say that out loud, okay? Or was he never saying it? Or was she pushing back? Or was she going like, honey, Kanye's got his ways. He says things, just let him go and say stuff. But he never said it publicly. That's the difference. They break up and they officially got divorced like 2 days ago, which was perfect timing. I'm sure she was so happy. The official, that's a good question. So let me go to Kevin. When Kanye and Nick Fuentes are on your show, do they act like this, or is it different?
How happy were you when I emailed this week asking if you needed me for the week? How happy,
I'm like, thank God.
How excited were you?
Oh, come on. You have nothing to do with Kanye.
I've got nothing to do with Kanye. So this is crazy stuff right now. This is as a Jewish person of ethnicity and
You're not
aesthetic.
Jew.
I am actually.
You're like 2% Jew.
I am 27%. Bite your tongue. I could have gone on birthright. God damn it. And as someone that aesthetically looks like someone that hated them in the 40s, this is a crazy time, dude. This is absolutely wild. I saw it unfolding on Twitter in real time, just like I saw the insurrection unfold in real time on the news. I wasn't there. Just want to state that. And it is. It's watching a car crash, and every single appearance makes me feel something different. At first I was like, I'm tired of the exploitation of someone that's mentally ill. And I'm not making an excuse for him. I think it's crazy we keep putting a microphone in front of someone that's clearly having a mental breakdown. I think that's a gross level of coverage. But then the more he does, the less you can excuse mental illness. I know a lot of people with bipolar. I'm a stand-up comedian. I know plenty of people with mental
Sure.
illness, and I know plenty of bad comedians, and I've never seen anyone just go, okay, Roseanne blamed Ambien. Do you understand? Like, that's as far as I'll go in the excuse category of like, bipolar doesn't put that stuff in your head. It makes you feel like you're going through different things. So there's the change there. It's like, obviously something's going on in your head and maybe your mental illness is making you shout it. I have no idea. But when you, I mean, dude, first off, could we just agree as we go into the break, no one's going to shout, "I like Hitler"? Could we just agree on this show? We're not going to do that because that's what he did.
Right.
He did on
especially
Alex
Hitler.
Jones.
He even said,
Right, yeah.
especially Hitler, like the
Well,
idea.
that's the thing,
He
man.
literally said, we've got to stop dissing the Nazis all the time. He goes, well, I see good things about Hitler. He goes, every human being has value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler. I'm like, especially
This
Hitler?
was,
Like, why would
You
you
know, time and place, man. Time and place. It's like, oh, really? Really?
This
He was a
was-
dog lover too, and that would have at least been accurate.
Yeah,
truly,
there's no good time and place for those guys. But the problem is, again, Kanye is look, Kanye is Kanye. Kyrie Irving, that was a certain thing. But the real danger is not in Kyrie and Kanye and Alex Jones, who I almost wish we wouldn't talk about him because it gives him, publicity. But it's, as I said before, the mainstream political, it never was in my life. You wouldn't hear these things. I'm sure people, of course, they thought it. It's never gone away. It's not like, wow, this anti-Semitism is new. It's always been there. And what's important, though, is to magnify where it should be and not where it shouldn't be. And especially when, and Gene and I have talked about this, I've been called a self-hating Jew because I, as a proud Jew and a supporter of Israel and Palestinians, I've criticized the Israeli government in its dealing with Palestinians. I think it's wrong. And then I'm called anti-Semitic for that. That is a completely wrong application of that word. You can criticize the Israeli government, not be anti-Semitic. And so we have to be careful who we call that, but obviously Kanye is, and in mainstream, and I have to mention Marjorie Taylor Greene only because she's espousing this replacement theory, which, by the way, David Duke should sue her for plagiarism. I mean, it's nothing new. And I have to just say that the people who, talk about replacement theory are the most replaceable people on the face of the earth. And when they say Jews will not replace us, we will. I can assure you that.
Can I say that this was truly, I mean, saying that I see good things in Hitler and I see good things in Nazi is like Charlottesville on steroids. That is, and like I said this on my show, which is, it's funny because when you watched Trump talk, you realize like this guy just might be stupid. When he goes, look, there's good people on both sides. You go, there's no way he meant that. There's no way he meant that. He said something crazy. And he doesn't want to admit he said something crazy, so he keeps going.
He doubled down, but he doubled.
Oh, sure. But I'm just saying,
years ago, 2017.
In that moment, though, you think stuff like, "There's no way he actually means that."
Oh, he does.
When Kanye
he did.
Fine, whatever.
But his base is white. No, he has a base of white supremacists. But no,
right.
there are times.
But hold on, Dean. Hold on. What I'm saying here is it's very, very clear that Kanye means what he's saying. This isn't a Joe Biden saying the wrong word, Trump saying the wrong word in a speech. This is clearly, very clear that this guy believes like, hey, we should look at all the good that happened. And it's like, well, when you murder 6 million people, you can't really look at the one you helped cross the street. Do you understand? Like, especially Hitler was trending on Twitter. And like my biggest fear was like listening to Christmas music on December 1st. Do you understand like the state that we're in right now? It's wild.
Well, two things on that. This is sort of catching everybody else up with when he said slavery was a choice, and the whole community went, "What?" We all did that little RCA Victor head dog tilt. Like, what is happening? So yeah, so we're all caught up. And just so that we know, Scott, you've set the clock running. You said MJT. If we say it 3 or 4 more times, we're gonna conjure her like it's a horror movie. So just watch the number of references.
Yeah, she does appear
from
a Jewish space laser. She does come down from the atmosphere.
That's exactly how it happened.
Yeah, I mean, can you share with the reaction of the? You don't have to speak for the whole Black community, but I just a sense.
Oh, darn it.
I know you could. Because Mark Lamont Hill, I don't know if you know Mark Lamont Hill. I know
yes,
Mark.
I do.
And he was tweeting to others in the Black community, stop. He said, for those of you still defending Kanye, stop it. He goes, this is not mental health. He's a bigot. He's vile and he's garbage. He actually put like an emoji of a garbage can because that's what Kanye is, and stop it. So imagine before this, there may have been some in the Black community defending him, not for what he was saying, but the fact that Black people get successful just over and over, that the media wants to tear them down. And that's truthful, that we all see this happen. Does that make some in the community defensive of someone like Kanye, not for what he's saying, but for the fact, here they go again, they're trying to destroy another Black successful person?
Two things can be true at the same time.
Sure.
You know, he can be saying hateful things and he can be mentally ill. So I don't think those things are mutually exclusive, as well as the response of the Black community. You know, and again, I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm a little too light-skinned for that. And my edges will never be right. So, you know,
Right.
but that said, yes, there always is that urge to protect, to circle the wagons, you know, around your own, because have there been legitimate times when, you know, the world, the government, the press have come for one of ours? Absolutely. There is history and there is precedence there. But to be more discerning, to be more nuanced, to go, you know what? Yeah, he probably shouldn't be saying this because he's going to get us all killed.
It hurts all of us. All right, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm chatting with Leighann Lord, Scott Blakeman, and Kevin Dombrowski, all comedians of a certain age who are very funny. They're all of a certain, whatever age they are.
Yes,
we all of a
we're
certain
all
age.
out of high school.
Whatever. I'm of the age that, like, if I died now, no one would go like, "Oh, but he had so much potential." That's the age. That's the age.
No one, Dean.
I'm
No
not
one
gonna give
would
you a
say
number,
that.
but that's where I am.
No one would say that if you kept living too, though. So don't feel bad about it. You know.
Thank you. You're a jerk, and we're gonna whiten your skin. Make you even whiter, like you're just shiny. So Elon Musk last night decides to finally block Kanye when Kanye puts up an image of swastika and the Star of David intertwined together. And look, and he said he's blocking for inciting violence. But that's such a murky standard. And I'm not defending Kanye at all. To me, the big thing is having Elon Musk decide who stays or not stays on Twitter is really problematic for society. And that's such an important platform for journalists and media. The president's on it, leading figures are on it. Before, Twitter, while not perfect, had a board of content moderators and try to do it and have a plan. You don't even know what the rules are anymore. It's like Kanye said, okay, he gave amnesty this week to all the bigots, all the racists, as long as you're not inciting violence. And then last night, he decides personally that Kanye goes too far. And I'm deeply concerned with this because this is the same guy who fired people at Twitter for criticizing him just a couple of weeks ago. So he's a thin-skinned guy, and it's not absolute freedom of speech because he believes whatever he believes doesn't matter. There's a business decision in this. He's trying to get certain people back on. So, Kevin, I mean, you use Twitter. Does it matter to you that's one person ruling one way or the other, and there's no set appeal process? It seems like.
Yeah, no, it definitely does bother me. Look, I'm not of the camp where I thought that Twitter was censoring free speech, because it's a company with its own set of policies and codes, and if you violate that company's policy, they have the right to suspend you. But I'm also one of those comics that believes, like, look, you could joke about whatever you want, but when you get off stage, you better be prepared to deal with the consequences of your timing and delivering content. So I'm of that camp of like, dude, say what you want to say, but be prepared for the outcome. And if you get suspended off of Twitter, it's because it's a company with its own policy. So how can you be upset about that?
Are you saying accountability, like, for your words?
Look at this, buddy.
Craziness you're suggesting?
Married with a kid, 2 albums. Look at me go. I am, dude. It's wild to me. Twitter is kind of crazy because last week everyone thought this was it. Everyone was like, Twitter's dying, and everyone sent out what they thought their last tweets were, which was hilarious because then, everyone pointed it out. It's not an original thought here of like the day after it was like the plane was going down and everyone's saying how they feel, and then it resurfaced, it re-leveled, and everyone's like, oh, well, now we're just living in this. Right. And it was a funny energy. It was a really funny energy in there, but it's so wild and so unpredictable. It feels like it changes day to day because he's literally changing a company in front of you. And I don't know Elon Musk. I don't know how he feels about things. I can see things from the outside like everyone. So I don't know if people that did criticize him got fired, or if it was because he was like, well, you're not with the company and anyone publicly against us shouldn't be with it. Like, I don't know what his reasoning for doing so is. I do think Kanye went nuts last night, and then he tweeted that thing about Chris Paul and Kim Kardashian. Like, he caught them together, and Chris Paul just called all these shrapnel. And then Elon Musk afterwards, he tweeted that. He said, let's break one more window before I leave, which is ridiculous. He tweeted that. He tweeted the swastika inside of a Star of David, which is wild. And then he tweeted Elon Musk getting hosed down by some dude with his shirt off. And it was really the sequence of tweets of watching someone leave. It was like Thanksgiving dinner, just flipping the table and leaving, just taking everyone with you. And then Elon goes, look, that's okay for you to show me in an unflattering shirt. This is not okay. You cannot tweet the swastika on Twitter.
And I agree, but there should be some rules.
I 100% agree with you.
The EU is saying, because the EU has a new law, the European Union, and they're saying you have to have content moderation policy.
Yes.
It can't be you. So he has to deal with them, or he could be banned, and he'll make a deal with them. The billionaires get away with everything, but he'll make some deal which makes them a little happy, and he can do what he wants.
I agree. There's got to be a code. Put a message board up by saying thou shalt not do this.
Right. It's called due process. It's giving people advance notice of what the penalties are and your rights are and how you can appeal. Well, I don't want to make this all about Elon. Leighann, I want to touch on something that Kevin said. I want to get this. We had this conversation on my show last night, and the phones blew up. People actually called, and they actually called.
What does that sound?
I'm like, write this day down. Someone actually called the show, but it was all about the line for free speech, because the Amazon CEO, Andy Jassy, said, and he said he's Jewish, but he was still allowed this anti-Semitic film to be sold on Amazon because he goes, we have to have, with a huge audience of people out there, divergence of opinions. And so the question comes down is, I'm the biggest defender of free speech. I have no problem. People say whatever they want about me, and they have, believe me. I have a very thick skin, but at the same time, other people don't have that thick skin. And if you're going to allow people to harass people on Twitter or on social media or sell hateful things, it causes true emotional distress. It can cause self-harm in certain people. And so there's a whole balance, as we all are compassionate people. Sincerely, we are. You balance it. Like, I'm the greatest defender of free speech. And at the same time, I agree with Kevin, unfortunately, but there are consequences. You're going to say it, you got to live with it. It's not like free speech is not like I get to speak and you don't get to say anything in response. That's not free speech. It's like you get it and then I get it. And I don't care if you don't like what I say in response. So Leighann, where do you come down? Is there a line? I know it's not a black and white line, but what's the standard for you in terms of speech that you think is defensible and speech that isn't?
Listen, I don't want to say it's a case-by-case basis, but it really is an adult, nuanced moderation type of thing. Yes, you can say what you want. Yes, there are going to be consequences. I think the actual correct answer to why that stuff is still up on Amazon is not about free speech. It's about capitalism. It's about making that money. That's what's important here. And by here, I mean Earth, apparently.
But I would have to say that, the Black Israelites, this film, they believe that Black people are real chosen, whatever it is, and they've been around forever. Also, I remember growing up in their Times Square,
I remember them.
Their stuff and a little speaker. And the problem is, Amazon has this whole part of them that it's not Amazon Studios presents, the Hebrew, whatever it's called. People are allowed to upload their stuff. We know people who've done that in a good way. They've done comedy specials, things like that. And I'm all in favor of that. And I always bring up this one case from, I guess it was the 80s or late 70s, when Nazis wanted to march in Skokie outside of Chicago, which had a high concentration of Holocaust survivors. And the ACLU rightly stepped in and said, the true test of free speech is defending speech we hate. And it doesn't get any worse than Nazis marching in a city which had lost so many people, the Nazis. But we need to defend it, and it needs to be out there, but we need to educate people. Like Kyrie Irving, for example, I don't believe is an anti-Semite. I don't believe he's a hateful person. I think he has ignorance on this topic. And sadly, he's a thoughtful guy. He wanted to learn about something. You don't that's the problem with Twitter, is that people mistake that for a place to learn. It's a place to laugh. It's a place to maybe get an interesting link, but for the most part, I think it's like all social media. There's some good, but for the most part, it's giving credibility and credence to liars and morons who can link, who have the same seeming credibility of the New York Times. So we need to educate people. That's how you fight anti-Semitism, racism, any kind of discrimination. But one thing I'd say too, I do think anti-Semitism is not treated the same way that Black racism or other things are, and that's important. It doesn't get the same outrage and Asian American hatred and Muslim hatred. All this needs to be treated exactly the same way, because Dean, we always talk about on the show that if you're silent when other people are being discriminated against, eventually they come around and get you. I'm not doing the quote properly. So this is a serious time. A lot of people are not taking anti-Semitism as seriously as they should, and I also have to say I finally watched Dave Chappelle's SNL monologue, and a lot of fellow Jews were outraged. I happen to think it was very funny, and I didn't like what he did talking about trans people. I thought that was ignorant and not funny and hateful. But I think that Dave Chappelle's stuff about Kanye and all that was funny, and it was not anti-Semitic. And you need to be able to talk about things. Yeah. And we've all been through this. I've done. Can I talk about Nazis? Obviously, but some people don't know that can't be funny. So we need to have the talk about things.
Mel Brooks, the producers. Remember, Mel Brooks and the producers got a lot of backlash. Yep. You guys remember that Springtime for Hitler, Germany, and the section in there where he has Hitler portrayed or Nazis portrayed, and there are people who said to Mel Brooks, "That's offensive" and everything. And Mel Brooks said, and that he had family lost in the Holocaust, and to him, nothing is better than people laughing at the Nazis every single night watching that, and that was his revenge because he couldn't do anything else militarily or something like that. And I was like, wow, it was a very conscious choice to put them in there and to mock them. I think that was great. I'm chatting with my friends Scott Blakeman, Kevin Dombrowski, and Leighann Lord. I can't tell you how many times I've been on cable news over the years about, did the comedians cross the line? I'm like, what line? What line are we talking about? Where is this line? It's like everyone's got their own line. And my whole view has always been the same, that if a comedian is being hateful, and we're adults, we know it, they deserve anything they get. Whatever they're being playful, you got to give them some room. And if they're just ignorant, like Scott is saying about a comedian, you help them learn. Sometimes people can be overly sensitive, and you can watch a comic special or something, and you're like, you can be in that community they're talking about. You're like, I don't see anything. What are you talking about? So there's such a gradation. It's not black and white. It really is.
There's a big balance when you talk about stand-up between look, we all do stand-up for us. We like doing it because we like making people laugh, but we do the shows for them. We do it because they're paying us to entertain them. So there's a balance there between what you want and what the audience wants. I do think the balance between it's talking about what you want to talk about, sure, but finding ways of making it palatable and entertaining for an audience is our responsibility. So it's like, as long as you come at it from those ways, you're going to be entertaining, barring whatever your act is, and you're going to talk about what you want to talk about. And that's, I do think that gets lost, but it's not as black and white as that. There's a ton of gray area within that. Is like, dude, go see comics working material out, and you'll see it's a constant finding of that balance. How do I talk about this in a way that they're going to be entertained by it? And it's that struggle of, that's why it takes so long for a really good joke to get that good, is you're like constantly hitting it. And so many times you're going to hit your own hand. You're going to, you're going to stub your toe. Like you're going to flat out just fall on your face and go, well, I'm never going to say that again. I'm never going to use that sentence to describe what I'm trying to say. And it sucks, but it's like, that's what stand-up is. It's the constant mining of that type of stuff. And people don't know that balance. That's the issue. It's like, people don't know, with the really good comics, this is what goes into being a very good stand-up, is you have to do stuff like that. And it's like, I think it's an untalked about thing. People think we just get up and we're just funny. And we just say whatever's on our mind.
No words, no effort, no whatever. But I'm sorry, Scott, I have to add this. You have to also look at intent. And I think sometimes people aren't doing that. You can get a sense of a comic's character. I mean, not the character they're playing on stage, but who they are as a person and what they're attempting and trying to do on stage. Did I come out that night with the intent to hurt your feelings? Absolutely not. Do some comics? Yes.
Well, also, quick thing here.
What is the intent? What is the content? And I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what stand-up comedy is. Like, I don't know if people are really getting it, especially if you come to a comedy club. How dare you go to a comedy club? You're essentially coming into our house and telling us what to serve for dinner. That's not really how this works.
Right.
If you're going out for grown folks entertainment, be grown. If you want to go to the circus, go to circus. If that's what you
And
can
also,
handle. If you
yeah,
can't
one
handle
quick thing
stand up,
too.
stay home.
I remember when Louis C.K. shortly after everything blew up, or when he got back from the stage for the first time, he did a bit very early on, as Kevin was saying, about Parkland, and it wasn't funny. It was harsh. He probably never did it again, but that was a whole article in the Times about this one line that he threw out in one of his first sets. So, you know, we have this problem in the art world now. My girlfriend's an artist. I have no knowledge. She does. And you have all across the country, great painters from the past or present are being, attacked, or their, exhibitions are being pulled, or you have to have these disclaimers just because in the 1800s someone said this or that. Or there's a painter artist, Philip Guston, who he had an image of a Ku Klux Klan guy, not pro. He's very progressive, but a lot of people say we shouldn't show his work. Or the whole notion, Dean, you know about this, is a film, Jihad Rehab, that I'm going to see next week. It was a white woman who spent years researching some prisoners in Guantanamo. And the film was endorsed by Althea Disney and produced. And then about 150 documentary filmmakers who had never seen the film signed a petition saying this white woman has no right to make a film about terrorists, which was, by the way, very empathetic and compassionate. So that's troubling to me, too. Everyone should be able to do whatever art they want, and everyone has a right to go see it or not. But they shouldn't be held from it because of who they are or what they're saying.
Well, we're not the ones are going to ban books. We're not Republicans. So let's take a break and come back with our friends to continue our conversation. We have a lot to cover, including the 2022 Word of the Year by Merriam-Webster and this thing that happens every 4 years. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of the Dean Obeidallah Show right after this. You guys ready? We return. Here we go. And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. It is still Friday, December 2nd, and still Leighann Lord, Kevin Dombrowski, and Scott Blakeman have returned to continuing the segment. So the World Cup, it's funny, World Cup, every 4 years I watch it, but I almost treat seeing soccer like seeing a celebrity you thought was dead. And you're like, oh, the guy from Silver Spoons is still alive? I didn't know that. And I started, wow, I'm like, this is pretty good, because I don't watch Red Bull soccer. I don't watch any domestic soccer. But when the World Cup comes on, at first I'm like, I don't know, this is slow. And then I start watching, I'm like, this is great. Why don't I watch this all the time? And then as soon as it's over, every now and then I might watch Premier League for like 5 minutes on NBC because it plays on NBC now in the morning. So, Leighann, let me start with you. Do you ever watch the World Cup? Are you watching this World Cup at all? Does it get on your radar?
Oh my gosh, absolutely not. No. I could not be less interested. I got as far as Ted Lasso, and I am very proud of myself. I love the show. I watched the first season and fired my therapist because Ted Lasso was better.
Right.
So no.
So no World Cup. It doesn't come up on your radar. You don't stumble on it. Watch.
Not whatsoever. It's like the Olympics for me. It's like, again with this? We're doing this again. Okay, fine.
It's So, all right. What about you, Scott? Do you watch any of the World Cup? Do you enjoy it?
No, I mean, that is what it does. What it does do is remind you that is the number one sport in the world, and they call it football. I've watched it occasionally. I'm more, I always like the Olympics. I like things with countries and the behind the scenes things. I like actually when sports can transcend politics and there were great moments like when the Iranian football team, soccer team, at great risk to themselves and their families, didn't sing the words to the national anthem initially. Then they were threatened and they kind of muttered them the second time. But I'm only thinking with Qatar, which you've performed in Qatar, haven't you, Dean?
I've been to Qatar.
In some ways, it's progressive in that it's the home of Al Jazeera, which is a really great force for the world. I mean, it was the first network media thing that actually criticized Arab countries. But I am concerned about the thousands of workers who died building those stadiums, their anti-gay policies, the beer. I could live with, not serving beer, but I do think they should be a little careful when they assign where the World Cup's going to be. That
it's based on bribes. It's based on bribes. So I mean,
yeah, well, I know
it's based on bribes.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like comedy careers. Oh wait, what?
What that part? What about you, Kevin? Do you watch any of this? Are you paying attention to it?
I haven't seen this go around, but I do
Really?
like watching soccer. Yeah, I do. I got really into the Women's World Cup. It was years ago, the one with like Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Hope Solo. I prefer watching women's soccer because, and this isn't a good way. I mean it. I think that the men's soccer, it's too fast paced and cluttered, and it's hard to watch. I think women's soccer slows it down, and you can see the form and technique better. And I appreciate the game. And so I watch it because it just feels it's less cluttered. Everyone plays their positions more. The game is slowed down. You can see how it goes, and it's really interesting to watch. And I think the form of everything's good. This is decades ago, I had an ex-girlfriend who I think she was a part of like the women's like national team when she was young.
Is this when you were dating Megan Rapinoe?
This is when I was dating Megan Rapinoe, and
how things have changed for everyone.
She had enough. She's like, no.
Yeah, I'm closer to dating Hope Solo now. I get pulled over every time I drive. But it is I do like watching it, and then obviously I toured with Mencia for years, and he is a diehard.
The comedian.
Yeah, he's a diehard Real Madrid fan. So it's hard to avoid that when you're on a tour where he's like, hey, it's 7 a.m. we're gonna go watch this game because it's 2 p.m. in that country, and you're at like a Buffalo Wild Wings going, what am I doing with my life right now? So that I do enjoy it when I watch it, but I'm in the middle of buying a house with my wife, and it's been a disaster. So I'm like,
dude, don't do it.
I'm
dude, sorry. I shouldn't say that. Home ownership is such a freaking trap, man.
Yeah,
this is a money pit.
It's interesting. I was going to ask you guys, like, what happens? Who do you cheer for if the U.S. isn't in it? But none of you guys watch it. Because me, like, I go with I'm half Italian. Italy didn't qualify, so I don't have that. And then I'll go to the Arab countries. Like, so I'm rooting for Morocco. But then after that, I just root for countries based on the cuisine if I like it. So I'm like, all right, France. I like
fair.
French. Bingo. Like, I don't know what Ecuadorian food's like, so I can't. I'm not against them. But I'm like, Ecuador versus France.
Wow. Team croissant.
I can't help it. I do like croissant. I like French chicken, the poulet rotisserie they have over by me here. It's like
French cuisine is good. I'll back you on that. I'll choose. I'll choose solely on croque monsieurs. Thank you.
So I'd say every year at the end of the year, Merriam-Webster picks the word of the year. And it seems like they missed the boat on this one because the word is gaslighting. That's the word that they're using. And gaslighting, which is defined by Merriam-Webster, in case people want to know, the act or practice of grossly misleading someone, especially for one's own advantage. And what I say it seems so dated is that I honestly didn't know the term gaslighting until Trump. And then everyone talked about gaslighting. And then I learned about it. I didn't know I'd never heard it. And I'm like, why wasn't this the word of the year in 2017? Is Merriam-Webster gaslighting us? Like, what's going on here? So are you, Scott, are you surprised? Yeah. And has there ever been a word of the year that stood out? Like, you're like, that was a great pick. Anything?
Well, I don't know what the committee is to pick a word of the year. I think it's just they're doing it by sheer volume. It came, like you said, it came out of nowhere. Although actually I did a little research. It goes at least as far back as the 1940 British film Gaslight, which, did open 12 years later. I sound like Ben Mankiewicz on, TCM, whatever it is. So it's an old word. Like, again, this is the theme of the show. Everything old is new again. None of this is new. Deceiving, and we just have new ways to deceive people now. And social media obviously is a tool for that. And so it really comes down to, we have personal responsibility to see what's going on. If we're being deceived and manipulated, not to go along with it and call it out. So I don't know. I'd like to see another word because I think it's also people use it too much when, like, why did you order that? You're gaslighting me. It has nothing to do with it. So,
wow. Yeah. And there is a play, 1938 play, which became a 1944 film, Gaslit. And it has, that was a relationship one where someone was being told that she was losing her mind and he was gaslighting her. And it's also known the Martha Mitchell effect. I'm not sure if you guys know that term or not, but it's a similar type of thing where everyone told Martha Mitchell she was crazy. She was John Mitchell's wife, the attorney general under Nixon. And she was telling everybody, they're doing this Watergate thing. Like, if you go back, she really is. And it was like, you're crazy. And then afterwards, like, oh my God, she wasn't. And everyone, they destroyed her credibility by in one big voice saying she was a crazy person. And she was revealing a lot was going on. Leighann, have you ever been in a relationship where you were gaslit or you were the gaslighter? Have you ever?
No,
You
well,
ever gaslit someone? Even
let me put it this way. Well, I
relationship-
don't think I've ever gaslit anyone. I find it much more effective to be as advertised. Like, listen, I was really honest about who I am up front. You knew what you were getting into. Stop crying. But I knew the term gaslighting because I had old Black parents who watched that movie and would talk about it. So yeah, I knew about the term.
You did.
And the reason why, yeah, I did. So that was not new to me. That was a common term in our household. But the reason why it couldn't have been that word, the word of the year years ago, I believe the 2016 word of the year was xenophobia, not to be confused with Xena the Warrior Princess. So
xenophobia.
we've had a lot going on, so it is hard to stand out as the word of the year. I'm surprised we're just now getting around to it.
Oh my God, gaslit. If my dad's a Palestinian immigrant and English is his second, arguably maybe even his third language. And to explain gaslit, I can't say my Dean, you're gaslighting me. I'm like, that never would have happened. People like, sure, gaslight means what? Because even my fiance Hen, who Scott knows, English is her third language. She speaks Arabic and Hebrew and then English. And she asked me recently about gaslit, and it's really hard word to explain. Like it really was like, so I had to read the definition. I go, here, let me read. Did that help? She's like, a little. So, what about Kevin? What about you? Have you ever been a gaslighter or a gaslit? It's ever been, or have you used that term like in sincerity? Like, this is gaslighting.
No. Well, first off, I'm an arsonist of no kind. So how dare you? Secondly, I've never used that term seriously. I heard that term when I said to my wife, I said, "Oh, I had a really good appearance on Dean the other day," and she said, "You're gaslighting me."
You're gaslighting,
that was
gaslighting yourself.
We don't really in my house. I mean, Dean, I think you've met my wife at some point.
Yes, I remember when you were dating. I remember.
Yeah.
When you guys were dating.
Yeah, she's not a person that would put up with gaslighting, so it's not easy for me to hear words like that because if I would start saying something that I thought that that happened and it's not true, she'd be like, "Shut up!" Like she wouldn't wait till it got to the manipulation stage.
I met your wife when you guys were dating at New York Comic Club early on, and I would say to her, I'd say to her like, "So how committed are you to Kevin?" Like, maybe like, hey, no, I'm kidding. She was always very nice, always mild.
Yeah, she's very nice. She's from California, so she's like California sweet. But she is like, she's settled in New York. She's raising a New York daughter. So she's tough as nails. And if you even approach the subject of like gaslighting, she will shut that shit down so fast, dude.
So Scott, have you ever used the term seriously? Like, have you ever, I just wrote an article literally 2 weeks ago for MSNBC where I wrote it was in the title about if you think the threat to our democracy from the GOP is over, you're gaslighting yourself. And then Merriam-Webster goes, word of the year, you see?
Well,
Obeidallah.
I think, they were unsure and they read
Dean,
Dean, they said, let's go with gaslighting. But
you are an influencer now, sir.
Absolutely. I don't use a lot of those words. Like that or woke or there's so many of these words and people use it, like I said before, in every situation, even when it's not appropriate. I'd rather use the old words that have gotten me through not that well.
Woke, what is so weird? At Thanksgiving, I had family members who are very liberal use woke in a negative way, and they're really liberal, and they're like, and some of these woke people, I'm like, what are some of these woke people? Like, who are you? What happened? Don't gaslight me. I mean, you like, what do you mean some of these woke? You're some of these woke people. And you know what it is? And even liberals, if they don't like one thing, they go, see, that's wokeness gone too far. And like, I don't know, there's not like you have to be all the same down on everything, but it's weird to hear people who are committed liberals using it in a negative way where they're within the frame and narrative of the right. They don't like the way something's talked about. They go, see, that's wokeness gone too far. It's not
no, and I got to say, I'm not saying this because I'm here, but it's just, our discussion here, none of us are using just words that everybody uses. We're being off the top of our head. And unfortunately, I think it's kind of boring, our political discourse. When you watch these debates everybody is so on message. They say the same exact thing over and over and over again. Because in the old days, they didn't, but then they'd catch you. Oh, you said that. And it's so boring and the same terms. And, Daily Show, they've done that where you just edit the various things. And it's like a message. They set it in the morning and they say it over and over and over again. And they do it on MSNBC and CNN and Fox and everything. And I'd like to see more originality and words.
I think if you put it into a little bit of a historical context, people say woke with the same bile and bitterness that not too long ago they would say abolitionist.
Oh, interesting.
So, be careful what you sneer at, and not using the word with any true understanding of its history. Like, socialism is wrong. Do you know what socialism is? Can you spell socialism? Like, what are you really talking about? What are you really angry about? You're really upset about making things in society even, making sure people are fed and clothed and clothed and housed. Like that's problematic. Making sure everybody can vote. That's what you have an issue with? Or that I'm going to be your neighbor. Is that what you're upset about?
Oh, and that brings us to the last topic I want to talk about here, which is the economy. And there is headline after headline, if you see it, recession's coming, recession's coming, recession's coming. And it's sort of like the red wave that corporate media talked about before the election, and the data wasn't backing it up. Now, we definitely have some economic slowdowns in certain sectors, but today the jobs report came out for November, the first Friday of each month, trailing month, they tell you the month before. 263,000 jobs created, way more than they expected. Unemployment still at 3.7%. The stock market was crashing this morning because of this, because it means the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates even more, making it more expensive for companies to borrow money, and it hurts their bottom line. But what are you guys seeing? I talk about this, the economic indicators, and then there's the comedic indicators. And I think what we see in the comedy clubs is when you see comedy clubs doing well, it means people have disposable income. Yep. And if they don't, you're going to see it right away. We're going to see it in our form before anyone. We just had the 19th annual New York Arab American Comedy Festival 2 weeks ago. We sold more tickets than ever in the 19 years. And the tickets are more expensive because of inflation. And I'm like, what recession is going on? So what are you guys seeing? Like, let's start with you, Leighann. I mean, you're always touring all over. Are you seeing it? And I think, do you do some corporate stuff as well?
Yes, mostly corporate now.
So do you see an impact there? Because that's where a big thing, they slow down on spending in corporate events.
Right. They slow down on spending on entertainment, on travel, on education, corporate education. Those are the things that get cut, because I also do corporate training as well. That's why I know that. But I am performing in front of full houses.
Interesting.
People are coming out because people want to be out. People want to, forget what's going on. They're tired of the horror show on the news and they want to be entertained.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Kevin, can you tell Kevin what it's like to perform in front of a full house?
Well, he's going to find out on Sunday, because he is taping two shows for his next album, everybody, which is called Stand Up Dad. Make sure you go out and catch that near your comedy club.
The title. It's called Gaslighting with Kevin. So, Kevin, what about like when you're at clubs all over? Because you travel.
I do, yeah. So I used to be on the road a lot more, and then the pandemic kind of cleared house with that. And I've been pretty steady in New York City. I've done a couple of road things the past few months, but I've been pretty steady in New York City. And look, I make my bread and butter hosting top clubs in New York, so I'm the front lines of stand up. I see what happens. I see the energy from going nothing into a comedy show, and business is good right now, man. I mean, you and I, I was hosting the show right after you at Gotham. Yeah. Hey, so we saw each other. There were back-to-back sold out shows. Gotham sells out, New York Comedy Club selling out. It's the Cellar is always going to be a sellout. The Stand's doing really well. So it's like, when the core four are all running at maximum capacity, things are good. And to Leann's point, people do want to laugh. Like I said, I'm the first point of contact from when the show starts, most of the time to the end of the show. And there's always going to be that arc of how good they are right away and how good they can be once they warm up, they start drinking, they're having fun. But I'm telling you, man, pre-pandemic, I saw worse crowds than post-pandemic. Post-pandemic, people are suspending animation again. They're suspending rules of society, and they're coming to comedy clubs to hear real shit, to hear comics talk. And it's, I think the most grating stuff is when people talk about the pandemic, because they don't want to remember that. They just want to be out and having fun and being in it and hearing real shit. So I do think crowds are good, and I think that business is good for comedy right now.
I mean, I think, when Dean, we talk about the economy, And it's like saying, the economy is getting better. It's like a headline, life is getting better. Well, for some people it is, and some people it isn't.
True.
Dean and I just did a show off Broadway. Laughing Liberally did. I was able to do 16 shows, which was really a great experience, called Indictment, Excitement, and it was very successful, and the audiences loved it. But frankly, and as the owner of the theater will tell you, off Broadway is not doing well. And I signed up for this thing where you get free tickets to Broadway and off Broadway shows. I've never seen so many shows on that list, including ones you'd be surprised are on there. So maybe older people are still skittish to go out.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe
a lot of
so
it depends on the demographic. I think I'm so glad comedy clubs are back. It probably gets a younger demographic. Movies are changed forever because I think a lot of people got used to watching everything streaming, and maybe they're not going. So it depends on the sector, but I hope that it comes around. As you all said, there's a pent up feeling, and I feel it. And I'm going to screenings, everything. I still wear my mask, but I'm just glad to get out there, and I'm glad audiences are in comedy clubs.
So we want.
I have to add, Dean, if you don't mind, to what Scott said. It's in addition to demographics, it's also price point. Theater is just a bigger bite. Yeah, even just for mezzanine seats. And I love theater. I was a theater kid. I go all the time. I'm going in a couple weeks to see Death of a Salesman, but that is not an inexpensive outing. So you got to think, is that where people are going to spend their money?
So quickly, if you guys would just tell people the website or where they can follow. Scott, we'll start with you.
Well, I'll just start. I do a podcast since April of 2020 with Tom Saunders called Getting Through This with Tom and Scott. Do two new episodes a week. So check it out wherever you find podcasts. And you find me, Facebook, Instagram. Not too much on Twitter, but I'm there too. And I'll come to your house too, but I'll wear a mask.
That's alarming. Leighann?
Veryfunnylady.com is the website and the portal to all things me. They finally got me. I am on TikTok, the Leighann Lord. So if you want to,
cool. I'll check it out.
I've given in. Come join me.
Ken, what about you?
Yeah, I host a podcast as well called Just Joking, where I riff with other comics weekly. It's what we do when we're not on stage. So that's a fun one to check out. But this Sunday, if you're looking for something inexpensive to do, nothing's more inexpensive than my tickets. Go to all of my social media at Kevin Dombrowski, and there's a link in that bio. Click that link. That'll send you right to the page where you can buy tickets to the 7 or 9:30 show at New York Comedy Club Gramercy on 24th and 2nd this Sunday, December 4th. It's a great show. I'm really proud of it. Come on out. Let's have a fun time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. It was a great conversation. We're going to take a break. Come right back.